by the way, it's season 12, and a ton of these breakpoints have not been fixed. May can't one-shot Tracer. Genji Dragonblade is in the dust. You found a way to limit everyone's player agency and gameplay options while promising them more. It's not necessarily about, is it unwinnable? It's just like, this isn't worth my fucking effort or time because it's just boring.
Hello, I'm Demigodson. I've been playing this game since its open beta in 2016, and hell, I was literally just going into 6th grade when I started playing. I fell in love with it, and all I did was go to school, go back home, and spend hours and hours playing games trying to get better. There was a serious magic with this game, and even during the worst metas, I still found myself addicted. And then Overwatch 2 released, and ever since, something felt off. I found myself liking the game less and less, and I don't even play it outside of recordings anymore. The developer team continued to disappoint with the cancellation of PvE and some atrocious heroes and patches, and I can tell from the community that our passions have dwindled for this game. Do I believe it's all Blizzard's fault? Well, not necessarily. They have done many things wrong over and over again in the development of Overwatch 2, but these things have resulted in the community transforming into this toxic melting pot of hopeless negativity. And I don't want to babysit these developers even though the community has been very harsh, but I can't find what they're doing to this game to be acceptable. I wanted to talk about what are the concrete problems with this game, not only balance and format wise, but as a player experience. I don't want my emotions to take over my thoughts for this game, and instead I'm going to be looking at the factors of why I'm finding Overwatch to be extremely unrewarding to play. If you are part of the player base that is having fun with this game and are still passionate about it, then don't let any other content creator affect your opinion. But all of the factors I will be going over in this video are all objective truths about Overwatch's gameplay, features, development, and community that have made a lot of us stop loving it. I'm in no way praying on Overwatch's downfall. I do love the game so much and I want it to succeed, but with all these issues still present, I cannot be hopeful for the future.
I thought that was my game.
Do you hate dealing with high ping in your competitive games? Well, I have the solution for you. With Gear Up Booster, all of your issues...
They actually are pretty good. We did an integration with them too.
And comment the issues with 5v5. I'm not going to talk... The first problem I wanted to talk about is the issues with 5v5. I'm not going to talk about the 5v5 6v6 debate, but I will say it has divided us as a community. The community is currently at civil war with this topic. Those who are 6v6ers, myself included, find themselves complaining about the format a lot, and it affects their gameplay because they believe that...
I would say that, look, I think it was only a civil war when people asking for 6v6 were blatantly ignored, gaslit, and lied to by people talking about 5v5. I think that's why it got so heated. At least from my perspective, like just being told that it's all rose-tinted glasses, it's all this. Like, frankly, and you know what? We know what the truth is at this point. The engine couldn't handle the game right now. It could not handle the format. Older systems and the Overwatch 2 engine could not handle 6v6. So I'm sorry, when they came out and they told creators this at the Creator Summit, which has been like word from multiple creators said they asked that and they published it in videos, to then not say anything to the community. No, they were trying to avoid the subject. They were desperately trying to avoid the subject. And from what it looked like, I'm not saying this is what was happening, but like, from the outside looking in, it looked like a lot of people very close to Blizzard, public faces, were attempting to cover up that fact. That's kind of what it seemed like. Because clearly there was some information internally going around that we didn't get to know until 6 to 8 months later. But I don't think it's fair to say it's a civil war. It really wasn't a civil war. People had their preference, but one group, I'm not going to say one group, but Blizzard didn't come out and speak on it when they should have, when it never should have been a taboo topic to begin with. And we now know why that was. We now know that the game engine could not handle it on older systems. And so, like, look, proof's in the pudding on that one. I don't like referring to it as a civil war. You know, people can have their opinions. I think one clearly offers more than the other. Both have their merits. I think one with more detriment than the other. But that's just my opinion, and I was always willing to see things out and hear things out on the 5v5 side, but it seemed like that wasn't reciprocated from Blizzard's end until eventually it got to a tipping point where people were like, all right, but we'll let it keep going.
They cannot do anything due to the format being 5v5, especially for tank players. When they have 5 enemies focused on them at all times, it makes it hard for them to accept this format for what it is when they could have an off tank to help them through that pressure. The tank synergy is missing, so heroes like Reinhardt feel miserable at times because you feel like there's nothing you can do about all the pressure that is on you. This makes tank feel so unbearable. Their inability to counterplay and have playmaking potential to cover the parts of their kit that are glaring weaknesses. And it's not like we can just move to 6v6 immediately either. The whole point of moving to 5v5 5v5 was because the developers felt as if they could not balance 6v6. Also, not to mention, apparently Overwatch 2's game engine cannot even handle 6v6, which is kind of absurd, but moving on. Blizzard for some reason decided to make all the tanks extremely overpowered when it comes to their survivability and their damage. D.Va is currently
Here's what I want to say. Like, the idea of Overwatch 2 has Activision written all over it. This is what Activision always did with their IP. I'm not trying to scapegoat greater Activision here. But they've done this with Call of Duty for years, dude. Where they just remake the same game and call it a new game and everyone buys it and shit. And, you know, to be fair, like what Overwatch 2 did, it was way more ambitious than what anything Call of Duty's tried to do with their new CODs. So hats off to the team on that one for at least trying, you know. And I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to say that entirely about Overwatch 2, but you know, so I'm not falling for another COD. I know I'll win drama. I got you. I feel the same way. But yeah, no, I mean, it just has it's to look like a new game. It's something different. Now, I genuinely think the swap to 5v5 was because they just truly didn't understand their game. I genuinely believe you can get more people to play tank in the previous format, but you had to find a way to make the game fun. And the reality is, and people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but I genuinely think it's true. And if you look at the patch cycle of Overwatch 1, where Bobby Kotick did not have his hand in the mix, okay? You have a lot of old school developers from the glory days of Blizzard accidentally making a FPS hero shooter and not really understanding the game mechanics of the game at a high level. They just didn't, dude. If they understood, they wouldn't have buffed every DPS in the game to try to stop goats. They would have successfully nerfed Brigitte and found some middle ground. They would have fixed double shield properly. They would have done these things. But unfortunately, their track record just was not good. So they did not understand what it was they were making or why it was unfun from a consumer on the boots on the ground level perspective. And that's hard to do. I'm not sitting here saying it's so easy. It's really not. It's really not an easy thing to do, but they had the opportunity to hear pro feedback. They had an opportunity to do all this stuff, and it didn't come through. And I'm not saying they have to be perfect, but just go look at the announcement of Overwatch 2's PvP and go listen, love Aaron, to what he said and what Jeff Goodman said and what these developers said. They were completely wrong. They were completely wrong about the claims they made. Double main tank was oppressive, you know, like tanks for the issues in double shield. Like they never were. They never were. Aside from the first double shield meta where Sig shield was too good. I still think Sigma had some. I think Sig is still like probably the most OP, well-rounded character they ever put in the game. Even like again, he transitioned to Overwatch 2 perfectly, but they just didn't get it. That's all. They just didn't get it.
The greatest tanks, but not because she is a well-designed tank, it's because she's an invincible DPS hero. She has 725 health, 375 of it being armor, a 3-second DM, boosters, and an extreme amount of DPS when she uses her missiles, making her one of the most oppressive heroes right now. With tanks like this in this game, it creates an atmosphere that is not fun for anyone else who is not playing tank. And they can't just ignore the tank either, because when there's targets like this that do this much DPS, they are an immediate threat, which puts the pressure back onto the tanks. This forces DPS players to swap to heroes that they didn't want to play just to suppress the enemy tank, which makes the tank need to swap, and it creates a cycle of misery between all of the roles. When one tank becomes a threat that needs to be dealt with, players will heavily abuse their weaknesses because they cannot be covered by another tank. So players will swap their hero to...
And by the way, you almost have to swap because the stats have become so strong. If you're not on a favorable matchup, you'll never create a kill. But in 6v6, when every character was more relative, and they could do this in 5v5 too, by the way. The problems would still be there, but like the answer has never been to buff the tanks more. It's been to accept the fact that playing tank is probably not going to be fun in 5v5, even though you cut one off, and keep health pools lower. Because again, remember this, guys. If both tanks have higher health pools and higher stats, they also can't make a play on each other. So they're sitting there in a massive stalemate with none of the gameplay options they had when there were two weaker tanks dueling in front of each other in 6v6. So you found a way... you found a way to limit everyone's player agency and gameplay options while promising them more. And they're stuck. There's nothing they can do about it. Nothing. So, yeah.
whoever can get the most value and abuse the enemy tank the most. Counter-swapping. This epidemic has been exaggerated in 5v5, and with the competitive nature of Overwatch, a lot of people resort to counter-swapping because it's the cheapest way to get value. The act of just picking a different hero is way too...
I wouldn't say it's the cheapest way to get value. It's the most efficient and consistent way to get value. And in Overwatch, consistency has always been king. You could play triple DPS comps into GOATs, but they were just way more efficient on the payload running those brawl comps back in the day in pro play, which is why the meta was dominant. The most consistent pick has always been the best pick in Overwatch. But what changed from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2 is that the most consistently good thing you could do was counter swap, especially when you maintain 15% of your ult charge, which is crazy that they've kept that in the game this long.
Valuable in Overwatch. When this is done, the enemy tank would become aggravated and would have to swap themselves. This is why a lot of people compare this game to rock, paper, scissors. Players are forced onto heroes that they don't want to play just to get the win, minimizing player choice and overall making the Overwatch experience pretty miserable. If the enemy team is playing Reinhardt, players can just swap to Reaper, Bastion, and Mauga just to ruin the enemy tank's experience, giving your team a heavy advantage. The same with Doomfist. Players can just swap to Roadhog, Sombra, Pharah, Ana, Brig, and it's just the easy way out. And even though it might not be that strong of a strategy, the Overwatch community has over-exaggerated it so much that it has become the most viable thing to do. The value just from picking someone is too high, both physically and mentally, and the amount of skill required to be able to play these characters into these heroes is...
It sounds like he's saying, and I would agree with what my conclusion here is. Well, I guess it's my conclusion, so of course I'd agree with it, but like, I think, and this is what Jeff Kaplan said back in Overwatch 1 as well, when they were testing 5v5, 6v6, 7v7, all these other things, 6v6 felt like the sweet spot to where you could have individual impact, but there wasn't too much emphasis and power on one player. Like right now, I feel like there's too much emphasis and power on one player. Is 6v6 perfect? No. Right? But really, like you're kind of in the Goldilocks zone here. Is the porridge too hot, too cold, or just right, you know? I would say, counter swapping aside and all that stuff aside, like it just seems like there's too much on one player, especially if you're the tank and your role's the most powerful one in the game. Like that's just not enjoyable to play. It's just not, in my opinion. But
is either inaccessible for the majority of the player base or is too complicated to put in the effort. And for players who don't swap, it will feel miserable for those on the team who want to win because they're actively making the game harder. All of these factors make it players feel like they cannot do anything due to the format, so players have been switching to heroes that don't need much team play or synergy.
Torby, baby.
Overwatch has a few bright spots when it comes to their hero design. Some I'd like to point out are Tracer and Winston. Both of these heroes have a lot in common, and I mainly want to highlight two factors that make both of these characters so fun and viable in most metas, and that's their playmaking ability and risk to reward ratios. Let's start with Winston. Winston, in my opinion, is the best hero in the game when it comes to their hero design and identity. Winston has two tools, being his jump and bubble, that can be used in so many different ways and allows Winston to have multiple options in their playmaking. He is able to hold space, get close and personal with certain tanks, and dive enemy backlines and DPS. You have the ability to counterplay and switch your tempo, change how you use your bubble or what you're leaping to. Since Winston has this well-rounded kit, it is balanced with his low damage and low amount of health compared to other tanks. His hitbox is oh so massive, making him incredibly weak against shotgun heroes. But if you are able to get around those heroes or have your team swap to counters for them, then Winston can still get value. His high risk, high reward nature awards those who are smart with his abilities, making Winston extremely fun to play and master at the same time. Similar to this, Tracer has the lowest health in the game, but also has some of the best mobility in the game. She does a lot of damage, but requires a high amount of skill to deal it, and is limited to a short range. She can easily be counterplayed with CC or turrets, but she has the option to go for other targets, or have a skill matchup against those heroes. Cassidy is one of the greatest heroes to play against Tracer, but if he misses his flash or can't aim, then he will get ran over by her. Same thing with Ana and her sleep dart. It creates a skill matchup between the two that is fair for both sides. But when we look at tank matchups, a lot of them can't be skill matchups. Some are downright impossible to play into, and especially when you add in 4 other players in the lobby, players have no choice but to switch. For a lot of players, they will resort to a hero that requires the least team play possible, so they can try to solo carry the game based on their mechanics alone. The main offender currently on ranked ladder being a Yari. All Yari has to do is set up a good pylon position, and she is practically unkillable.
Guys, I'm not gonna lie, my take on Alari or Yari was awful. I thought she was healthy for the game. I could not have been more fucking wrong, man. I own that one, man. I own that one. I saw a support without an immortality, and I was like, they finally made a fun support. Boy, was I fucking wrong. Jesus Christ, was I fucking wrong, man. I was so wrong. I was blinded by the immortality hate to think that Alari was okay. She's not, man. She is one of the least fun heroes I've ever played against in Overwatch because she's just a better DPS. Juno's fine. I think Juno's fine aside from her micro missiles like auto locking. I could not have been more wrong about Illari. Like, just they've got to take another look at that character and what they are. Like the pylon, the damage from range. I know you guys have seen that clip of her just literally having a 3 times faster time to kill on a Reinhardt than a Cass from mid-range. It's like, what the fuck? Like, that's a support. Like, you can have supports have DPS options, but the support can't be the best fucking DPS in the game. What are we doing? With the permanent pylon anchor? What? The players have to break? It's just, they've just, like, the concept of the character is not bad, but unfortunately, she's just another fucking Brigitte, like OG Brig. Like, it's just insane. Kind of tired of support heroes expecting to do damage. That's fine, yeah. She's egregious example, and there's not like there's any play that you can make because you can't realistically run through their entire team to break the pylon and kill her. Like, you can't do that. Like, there are times where you can, but if that's the expectation to counter her, you don't get to do that consistently because guess what? They have an entire team in front of them that's going to help them. So, is what it is. Let her keep going.
Hold an angle by herself and be a DPS while her pylon heals everyone as a 6th teammate. It's a 0 risk ability that provides way too much value and allows her to just be a DPS hero, especially pairing with her ultimate that is literally a DPS ultimate. Other heroes are being played for this style of play, such as Baptiste, Roadhog, D.Va, and Widowmaker. All of these heroes can play separate from the rest of their team and get so much value just from individual play. On the other side of this, there are heroes with absolutely 0 risk that people will play just because they don't have to make decisions and they can make awful plays and get away with it because of the tools in their kit. These would include Widowmaker, Kiriko, and D.Va, but also characters that get value way too easily, such as Lifeweaver and Mercy. Those two being very bad heroes, but people still play.
I would not throw Mercy especially post season 9 in that mix. I don't think Mercy brings enough to the table to be considered in that mix. I don't. Lifeweaver, on the other hand, can. Again, they've got, if they really want to make the game great, like, it would be really cool to see them sit down and, like, change how a lot of these characters work. Like, especially, like, Ayari, Lifeweaver, what was the other one he said? I'm brain farting here. I think Mercy's fine. You don't have to move her to DPS. She can be a support character. You don't have to do that. But that would be cool to see them do. It is Overwatch 2 has become autopilot simulator is pretty much what it is.
Play them because they require the lowest amount of effort. They can be mastered, but it really doesn't take much to use their abilities since they are completely based on reactivity rather than proactivity in playmaking. These abilities are also uninteractable with almost anything in the game. On the other hand, Kiriko is an extreme case because she has 2 of the best abilities in the game, amazing dueling potential with kunai, probably the best ultimate in the game, and a very hard to hit hitbox. Because of all of this, she is able to make...
I would say Juno ult is the first ult that's better than Kitsune, in my opinion.
Downright horrendous plays in enemy backlines or in horrible positions, and she does not need to think about it because she has Suzu and a TP that goes through walls, both being get out of jail free card abilities. It's not fun playing against these types of heroes because they have 0 risk, so it's...
But actually, Kiriko has, despite her perception of being strong, she actually has one of the worst win rates in the game. It's like, it might be because you're trying to make the support populace, which I'm just going to say it for what it is. No flame to support players out there, but, like, look, if it waddles and quacks, it's a duck. The support players are the worst players in Overwatch, talent-wise. They just are. It's the least demanding role. You're able to get as much free value as you can. If you have to do way less to get value on support than you do on tank and DPS. Because when you make a mistake on tank and DPS, a lot of the times the fight is over right then and there, right? But when you make a mistake on support, because there's a big exchange going on in front of you, there are more times where you won't get punished immediately with a death, which means you cannot do anything at all. And if you look historically at Overwatch, and there's been plenty of times where you've seen like results like this, where like the most infamous thing that I remember was DeFran did like this test where he went in Overwatch 1 and found the amount of players in each role that were 4,400 or higher per each role. The role that had the most players that were 4,400 or higher on all 3 roles was DPS by a large margin. So the DPS players had like maybe like 60, 70-ish, right? Tanks had like 30 or 40, and support had like 4. Like, so, it's a role where, like, the skill sets of individual characters that a lot of people play don't translate to other. Like, for example, Mercy's skill set is super unique, right? Like, if you're good at Mercy, that doesn't necessarily correlate to, like, a lot of other characters because of what the character is, right? Then if you play Moira, that's not going to correlate. But if you play DPS, which is the most demanding role in the game, like, those skill sets will probably apply to the other roles as well. From your aim to your positioning, understanding duels. Saying support doesn't get punished is such a high level player take. Appealing for support is non-existent in lower levels. Yeah, but you have every tool in the world to survive on your own if you know how to play the game. Support is the most overkitted role in terms of, like, just actually having bailout abilities. Tanks is the most overkitted role because they just have so many passive stats now that allow them to mitigate incoming damage and incoming value passively. Supports have the most proactive tools to save themselves in the entire game. And if you're good at support, you don't need a ton of peel depending on the character, unless you play Ana, God bless you. But yeah, no, like, let's not act like you don't have the most insane utility on support, especially in low-level play where DPS players and other people can't hit their abilities. Again, that's a skill issue. That's a skill issue, right? You have the most tools in the game on support. But yeah, so we'll let them keep going. But yeah.
It's frustrating for someone like Tracer, who is high risk, high reward, to just lose so easily to someone like Kiriko. It's frustrating to have these heroes in the game, when we also have heroes that are so risky and require so much skill, but give such low reward for their efforts. These being Genji and Zenyatta. Genji has been horrible for almost all of Overwatch 2's lifespan, because he cannot get picks without putting himself into dangerous positions. But he cannot finish kills because his damage is too low, and his combos are gone thanks to power creep and health pools being increased. His Dragon Blade, especially, has had zero identity for such a long time. It requires 3 slashes to kill the average hero in the game, but Blizzard didn't buff its damage, but rather its swing speed, which didn't solve the problem. He's been left in the dust for a while, and he's a straight up throw pick in ranks where it matters. Another throw pick is Zenyatta. Zenyatta can do a lot of damage and has good pick potential with Volley and Discord, but unfortunately his weaknesses are so extreme that it's actually a burden to play Zen at times. He cannot do anything when he gets dived, and he has very weak amount of health. He has no movement and a pretty big hitbox. It's sad having heroes in the state while others are so much better just because they don't require any skill matchups or risk taking.
Guys, what was so good about October 2020 that we still look back to this day and say it was great? It felt like you could play anything. It was more about how you played rather than what you picked, and that's how you create the best player experience, because the player then looks at the game and says, okay, like, I could have done more here, rather than, okay, they picked this and I should have done other things because the game's forcing me in this direction, which is a lot of what happens now. And it's hard to get to that point, by the way. It's not easy to do that, to be clear.
On the other hand, there are also heroes who fundamentally cannot be meta, or else it will be unhealthy for the game and unfun for everyone. Hero identifying abilities like Infinite Stealth and Roadhog Hook are just unfair and bad game design. Sombra is given a way of getting into positions, rotating, and escaping without even being seen by the enemy team, not to mention a 60% speed boost. Roadhog is able to get an instant kill on a good amount of heroes in the game, and unfortunately there's really no way to counter it besides having a tank or support to eat the damage for you. Roadhog doesn't have to get out of a good position for it either, and even if he does, his Vate gives so much damage reduction and you can just use it whenever you want, so it just doesn't matter. With all these heroes being played, it creates an unfun environment where players will complain about every hero that they go against or have on their team. It doesn't feel like the enemy team is outplaying you, but rather whatever hero has the lowest risk needed to play. Overwatch is one of the most competitive games out there, so players are looking to do the cheapest things possible to win. With these hero designs being in the game, it makes it really hard to create a team-based environment where players are looking to make plays together and synergize with one another. Blizzard's weakest department when it comes to the development of Overwatch 2 has to go to their balance team. The balance team has been consistently pumping out balance patches filled with glaring issues and questionable game-changing decisions that never fail to disappoint the community. The developers constantly have missed the ball on these patches in multiple ways. Some changes they make are completely irrelevant to the actual problem of a hero's kit, such as the most recent D.Va change. The problem with D.Va is that she has so much armor and she can win any duel in the game. She has a high amount of DPS with boosters and missiles, and the fact that she can't be punished for it is frustrating to play against. And if she is taking a lot of damage or trying to get in, she can just hold DM forever or tap it on and off since it's on a 1-second cooldown. Out of all of these factors, in an attempt to bring D.Va's power down, Blizzard's solution was to reduce her total DM time from 3.5 seconds to 3 seconds. I do not care how you feel about the development.
After they just buffed it at the mid-season of last season. All they did was revert an additional buff they gave her for no reason.
developer team, but this is absolutely embarrassing. This does not help the issue, and it feels like the devs don't even understand why D.Va is so powerful at the moment. She is still heavily oppressive, deals heavy damage, and has an incredible amount of hit points. This change does not impact the core issues with her kit and is a useless change. Other types of changes the developers do are global changes to multiple heroes or passives. The most recent one was the nerf on mobile heroes, which really didn't make sense to me. Blizzard always forgets that these changes have consequences that either benefit or ruin the game for other heroes that are not directly changed. D.Va, in as strong of a state she is right now, is now even stronger because some of the heroes in the game are now down to 225 HP. And a lot of times, these changes can also be inconsistent, like how Hanzo was changed to 225 HP. Hanzo is a sniper who has had no identity for the past 6 months because of how horrible power creep and the health changes have been for him, and now he is even weaker. Sure, he can one-shot these 225 HP targets now, but it doesn't matter when the hit scan heroes that you most likely will be dueling are still at 250 HP. Ashe should be at 225 HP in this case to balance out Hanzo's lower health. Hanzo has been left in the dust by Blizzard for so long, and for him to be nerfed is just unbelievable. Hanzo is so much weaker now against these hit scan heroes, and he can't even duel someone like Iari. Other changes that Blizzard made this patch are unnecessary or directionless buffs, which are net buffs to heroes who either have full identity problems, do not need the particular buff to be fixed, or are quote-unquote not good on the statistics side. There have been 2 changes in this most recent patch that I want to go over, that being Orisa and Sombra. Orisa is struggling because she has no identity. You do not have a get out of jail free button, and all of your cooldowns are reactionary abilities rather than proactive abilities. Orisa struggles with making plays, getting into the enemy team, and surviving without Fortify. And they decided to add a little damage on the best part.
Oh, is he an Xbox player? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, it's just funny. It's like, again, a new Orisa, just so you guys know, and this is why I say, when they were designing Overwatch 2, the people designing it simply did not understand their product. Orisa is the exact perfect example of what they wanted to make tanks. They wanted to make tanks these, quote, and you can go read the dev blogs, on the ground brawlers. But what they didn't understand was that they were removing all the playmaking in the process. Because you remove the second tank and you remove the dynamic of the frontline exchange. And then not only do you remove that, but as time goes on, if you buff both tanks more and more, it actually makes it more difficult for them to make a play. Because you could say, well, just go make a play on the backline, but you can't really do that, can you? Because if you're the only tank, there's generally a best spot on the map that you have to anchor and create space for. And so if you go run to their backline, you just walk into a kill box and die. But if you do go for their backline, then their tank and their team can run you over your backline. So Orisa is the perfect example, again, of what they wanted the brawl tank to be. But there's not an actual gameplay loop with diverse options and playmaking potential. But when there were 2 lower HP tanks that could kill each other consistently, the gameplay loop became literally 10 times more dynamic for everybody, including the DPS players too, who could also kill these tanks. And so, yeah, you might not be able to get free space, but what's that additional free space worth when there's not an actual play to make? When your gameplay options have become severely limited because there's just not as much to do. You haven't created a more dynamic, fun game. You've created a watered-down, light version of your game. You created a diet game. Congratulations. We've got Diet Overwatch over here. You know, that's what you made. You've made Diet Overwatch. Overwatch 0. Don't sue me, Coke. And I just find it really funny that we're 12 seasons into the game and people are still struggling to accept this. It's insane. And Orisa, just so you all know, for how hated Orisa is, Orisa was their vision for tanks in this game. They just didn't get it. The original Team 4 did not understand the masterpiece they made. And, it is what it is. They're, still talented when it comes to, like, actually producing a good game. But when it comes to maintaining it, that balance team and design team just didn't get it. They just did not get it.
Part of her kit, the Javelin. This change won't be noticed at all since Orisa is so bad right now, but in the future, if Orisa comes into the meta, this is just how powerful her Javelin is now. This is how power creep happens. Roadhog is a hero with an extreme identity issue, and they have buffed him so many times to try to make his hero work in the game, but simply his hero design is impossible to fit into Overwatch. So in the words of Light, we just have Thanos walking around the map because the only way to make these hero designs work is by making them extremely overpowered. And sometimes when they make a lot of these changes and combine them with global changes, heroes who don't receive anything will get left behind.
But hey guys, remind me what happened a year ago. Remind me what happened a year ago when Hawk and I It's actually about a year to date now. Came out and said they're not going to know what to do with it because there truly is no option. And they're just going to end up buffing everything. How many consecutive tank buffs do we see the passives net across the board post season 9? Don't forget, the tank regen passive is also significantly better than every other roles in the game because it heals a percentage of their health as well. So they heal faster. The armor changes, headshot mitigation, ult charge reduction, less CC, buffs to almost every individual hero. Queen's healing is twice as good as it was before. Junker Queen is a sleeper pick. But the only reason that she's not even dominating is because she doesn't have the tools that make her good on every map. So what they do to try to make her work, doubled her healing. It's like this format has just caused their design to have to spiral to try to make things work. It's unbalanceable, bro. And everyone a year ago, all the streamers, and I'm going to call out my friends on this one. This is why, like, respectfully, I try to stay in my lane nowadays because there's so much wool over the eyes when you're around that inner circle, okay? There's so much wool. I mean, this is not flame at all. This is just like a reality of life that I've kind of learned. This is why, I want to try to be as close to the ground level as possible. I could not be honest or get good thoughts out. I found myself thinking with a filter when I was surrounded by that ecosystem. And I mean that truly with no flame at all. I'm not trying to sit here and like knock anybody, but I'm going to try to go to where I think the truth is. That's where I'm going to go. And the fact that everyone was sitting there trying to rework, like, do you remember Yeedle's video? I love Yeedle, by the way. Shout out Yeedle. I love Yeedle. This is not flame to him at all. But you have guys like Yeedle, who's been one of the best tank players in the game, coming out saying Orisa needs to fucking fly. Like, what? Like, at what point are we just saying this is ridiculous? Sunk cost. Sunk cost. You know? And it's not perfect in 6v6, but none of this needs to happen. At what point in 6v6 were we saying that we have to buff every tank across the board? Like, look at the extremities that they've had to go to try and make this work and have it still fail compared to 6v6. And imagine if they were willing to go that distance. Imagine if they were willing to go half that distance to address 2 or 3 characters that when they got nerfed, the game was great. And the receipts are there from October 2020. The receipts are there when they actually nerfed these characters. When they nerfed Brig and people weren't playing her. It's just the amount of just excuses that we had to strip away to even get this conversation to happen just shows you how flawed the state of this shit is. Truly. The simplest answer that even your average player at home could see very early on. And I missed this too. Back then, and like, this is why I'm not really in the Overwatch creator space. I gave things chances that I knew were not the answer because I wanted to be involved in the space. Truly. I didn't realize that I was doing it until, look, I know people have their opinions on Raider. I know people do. He's not perfect. He's said and done dumb things, as have I. But if there's one fucking, listen, you can say what you want about the guy, but he was right. He was right when he called every creator out, including myself. And I remember what he said. He said, you used to be the big bad wolf. What happened? I huffed the copium, bro. That's what happened. I huffed the copium. And at the time, of course, I didn't know that none of the creators knew PvE was going to be canceled. They kept a lid on that, like, really tight. So I wanted to give them a chance. But like, it's crazy. The amount of shit we have to strip away to make this conversation happen. And so I had to look in the mirror and accept that I was wrong and I've gone my own way. I don't wish ill on anybody else that wants to be involved with all that stuff. Like, that's fine. You do you. Hey, all the power to you. But when it takes away from the ability to tell the truth and have like real discussions, and then you have the wool over your eyes, and you can't call shit because it has to look good. You know, you can put as much makeup on dog poop as you want. It's still dog shit, right? You know, it is what it is, and that's what Overwatch 2 is. You know, it's unfortunate. But skins are fire. I will say the skins and new systems have been good. It's just unfortunately the core gameplay is just not there right now.
behind, such as Genji. Genji has easily been one of, if not the worst hero in the game. His damage numbers have not been altered to make up for the Season 9 health pool changes, and his entire kit is very counterable compared to every other hero. He's way too high risk for the same amount of value that a lot of these no-risk heroes can get. Now onto the Sombra change. Sombra should not be able to sit invis infinitely. It is a broken concept and creates barely any risk for her. Her buff with Virus is to make up for her lower HP, which I'm okay with, but she does not need a stealth movement speed buff. It is improving the core issue with Sombra's design and can be easily fixed by putting stealth on a resource meter, but instead Blizzard is doubling down on the concept and encouraging it. Another hero who received changes this patch is Kiriko, which I liked them, but the developer's comment for the change does not make sense at all, which is making a lot of players believe that they do not play the game. Blizzard said that Kiriko is struggling and does not have a good enough win rate for them to believe that she is powerful enough, but it is absurd that they would want to buff her. Kiriko is simply the best hero in the game. She has the 2 best abilities in the game, one of, if not the best ultimate in the game, a small hitbox, crazy dueling potential, 0 risk, and immortality, the ability to cleanse status effects, a TP through walls. Like, she is ridiculous, and Blizzard decided to buff her because her win rate is low. I hate when they do this because win rate does not mean that the hero is bad, and I believe in Kiriko's case, players are either not good enough or don't understand her potential. Kiriko does not need any buffs, and apparently Blizzard doesn't see that. It really doesn't feel like Blizzard understands the game or what to do to fix it, which is just unbelievable since there are thousands of players that understand the issues with the heroes in this game. Spylo and other content creators literally make videos reworking or trying to figure out how to balance the game, and yet Blizzard never listens or even attempts these changes. These changes aren't even play tested either. The balance team just spins a wheel on what changes they want to make this patch and don't think about the outcomes of it. They do not understand the current issues and never address the core problems with the gameplay at the time.
They did hire someone new, thank God. And this has just been true the whole time. Again, like, look, here's the thing. Look at the things they said they would never do. Guys, I can name more goalposts and objectives they failed at in Overwatch 2 than they achieved. There's a clip of Josh No 2 years ago, 3 years ago, saying, and again, opinions can change over time, but I think that this one has been proven to age well in what I'm going to argue here, that they never want to change hero health pools and change breakpoints because it becomes very, very dangerous and makes things super volatile. I'll have to go find the clip. I think Keone has it from Group Up Podcast. These are their words, by the way, not ours. Where's Keone? Why is this fucking kid not showing up on my Discord, bro? What? Hold on. It's fucking horse shit. What? Where is this dent head? Hold on. I'm finding this clip. Now I'm more determined to find it. Oh, there we go. Am I crazy? Why is this clip not here? Hold on. All right, I'm not sure why this clip is not here, but maybe one of you guys can go find it. It's an old Group Up podcast where Josh No was on the show, who's the lead hero balancer at Blizzard, and they literally come out and they say, we don't want to change health pools because it's unhealthy and dangerous for breakpoints. And then what do we have to do in Season 9? Change every health pool in the game. And by the way, it's Season 12. And a ton of these breakpoints have not been fixed. May can't one-shot Tracer. Genji Dragonblade is in the dust. Hanzo, I'm not even going to start on Hanzo. Echo, as an Echo player, her time to kill is worse. What was so much fun about Echo pre-Season 9 is that she was like the ultimate skill check hero, where it's like, hey, it's hard to hit these shots, but if you hit all your stickies and if you hit all these things and you do it perfectly while managing your movement, you get the reward for being perfect. I don't need better shot accuracy. I don't. And so playing Echo has not even been fun for me anymore because she was supposed to be that super difficult character that you could get a ton of value on, but her time to kill is just worse. And so it's just like they just don't know what to do with this game. They said that hard counters were bad for the game, so we're removing them and putting heroes in the battle pass. Okay, sure. Turns out hard counters are more prevalent. Oh, we actually changed our mind. We think counters are good for the game. We want to create more player agency, and yet they removed options and made a one-dimensional stale gameplay loop. Like, every big claim that they made aged like milk. Like milk. I can't think, and I'm being serious here, I can't think of a 5v5 take that is gameplay related that they got right in the claims coming into Overwatch 2. Can anyone think of one for me? Like, I want to give it a chance here. I can think of 4 or 5 off the top of my head that they were completely wrong about, that were big gameplay issues that they've walked back. I can't think of a big one they got right. Maybe spacing, like having more space on the map. But that's about it. Like, there's not, I don't know, man. I don't know. More tank player agency, just individual agency, but you really don't. There's less options in 5v5 for you to go make plays than there are in 6v6. Having more space to go on a target you can't kill doesn't matter. But having the space be contested by a target you can kill is more options. That is more options. There was not a single tank outside of double shield because of Baptiste and Brigitte that I could not make a play on in Overwatch 1. Not a single one. There was not a single tank that I could not kill in Overwatch 1 unless they were being pocketed by a Bap and Brig. Or Orisa without headshot damage. All of those things were solvable in one patch. More spacing makes ults less powerful MMO, and 5v5 ulting and gold rank get wasted very often. Well, they got wasted more in 6v6 too. So I don't know. Tempo tanks, like brawler tanks, like brawler in this case just sitting still looking at each other doing nothing. The best thing you do is to take his lift. So yeah, I don't know. We're going to keep it going.
Experimental mode was used probably once in Overwatch 2's history, and now it is deleted forever. Even Overwatch 1 had the PTR server to try out the new changes before they implemented them. The only playtesting we get is for the new hero. Playtesting needs to be done, and listening to the community is important for the success of your game. The balance in this game is just getting worse and worse, and it's making it really hard to enjoy playing the base game. Outside of playing the base game, there really isn't much content for you. When Overwatch 2 was announced, Blizzard said they would be releasing a PvE story mode after seeing the success of the Archives missions. After sitting through the Graveyard season of Overwatch for years, we were finally ready to play this new story mode. Overwatch's fictional universe is filled with extensive lore and lovable personalities, and with an extraordinary art team, we were so excited to play through a campaign and see actual progression within Overwatch's universe. They showed off the hero upgrade trees to make abilities and ultimates even cooler with things like a 360-degree shatter or a chain explosion for pulse bomb, but unfortunately Overwatch 2 released with no sign of PvE, and all of our promises were pretty much broken. It was delayed and delayed until eventually the Invasion bundle came out, including 3 missions that were pretty mediocre. It was a very bare bones version of what—
Bro, they were awful. Like hot take, these missions were not better than like the original PvE in the first game, bro. I'm not gonna lie, like I would say the first 2 were really good, and then Storm Rising was bad. And then, honestly, these just weren't good at all. I'll be real.
What we saw in the Overwatch 2 trailers. The hero trees were removed, and a lot of the gameplay in the missions became very repetitive. It was disappointing to see as an Overwatch fan that after all of these years and the Graveyard season, this was all they could offer to the community. After a few months, they announced that they would stop all development of the PvE, which was
water
the
under
nail
the
in the
bridge.
coffin. It was horrible to hear that they were going to do nothing with the game's universe. Playing Overwatch 2 before PvE came out felt hopeful. We knew something big was coming in the future, so a lot of us stayed through to hopefully reach the day it came out. There was something to look forward to, but without it, it now feels like there's no defined future for the development of Overwatch. Besides a hero every other season and the occasional game mode, most of Overwatch's development is fully dedicated towards new cosmetics, and it is very unfortunate when recently these new heroes are coming out with no skins. Mauga, Venture, and now Juno all do not have any default legendary or even epic skins. Venture and Juno specifically lack in content. In
now,
a case that
here's what I'll say. I think the Microsoft merger, the Microsoft acquisition probably set a lot of things back internally. Like that was, guys, we have to understand something here, to be fair. That was the biggest buy in gaming history, Activision Blizzard of Microsoft. So like there's going to take some time for the dust to settle. Will it be better for the game? I don't know. We'll see.
Pisses me off is Venture's non-binary skin. The first ever Pride skin in the entire game was added only for a limited time event Twitch drop if you watched a Calling All Heroes stream. The marketing for it was not enough to get it out there, and it sucks that a lot of people missed out on this skin. Anyways, for The regular skins in Overwatch, they have been kind of cooking with some of these new skins and collabs. Here are a few of them that I think that are very well designed. I really like what the art team can do with a lot of these skins, especially for the collab ones, such as the Transformers event and the Le Seraphim bundle. Also, not to mention the mythic skins in the Battle Pass have been really nice. Unfortunately though, if you wanted to complete a skin set from the Battle Pass, you'd have to either buy the Ultimate bundle, or you have to buy a completely separate skin bundle, or even have to do both at times. And my only other gripe is how often they make reskins. Overwatch 2 has 38 reskins that are only obtainable through buying them in the shop. It made sense to have reskins in Overwatch 1 since all skins were obtainable for free, but now in Overwatch 2, I personally don't believe that these skins should be sold at a price such as $20, and I especially don't like when they put them into bundles to increase the overall price of the bundle. This Hanzo skin is a recolor of the Cyber Dragon skin, and it has unfortunately been bundled with these two other amazing skins. It would have been really nice for Blizzard to actually make a skin for Hanzo that matched this set, but instead they were lazy about it and recolored another skin just to add more stuff to the bundle to raise the price. And yes, you are technically getting more content because of the discount, but it's content that you didn't buy the bundle for. And for the reskins that are sold alone, you may be wondering, then just don't buy them. Then that creates a problem for both Blizzard and the players. If no one is buying the skin in the shop, then Blizzard gets no money from it, and we get no content. It is a stalemate putting things like this in the shop, and I would rather see already fan favorite skins be put out again because players will actually be excited to buy those, and it will make Blizzard more money. There's also this video on why the prices should be changed, which I suggest you go watch if you're interested. Anyways, outside of cosmetics, we have been receiving a lot of content including new heroes and occasional maps or game modes. The only issue is the quality of the heroes that they've been adding. 6 of the heroes that have been added in Overwatch 2 have major issues with either hero identity, individualistic play, and failsafe abilities, or balance paradoxes. It has been very disappointing seeing the design team and balancing team mess up time after time. It really doesn't feel like they understand what elements made the heroes we like the most so good. They kept adding in abilities that didn't require any thought or creativity and rather started distributing heroes with no weaknesses because they have a button that makes them unkillable for a few seconds. And the final bits of content that we get are from the special events, which unfortunately have had close to 0 changes over the years. The seasonal events have not received any new game modes, missions, challenge modes, or anything. Blizzard does come out with limited time game modes such as Mirror Watch from time to time, but the excitement from these seasonal events has been drained every year. The new content that comes out with these events are only cosmetics behind a paywall, so the free-to-play experience is very miserable. On top of that, most of the quality of life changes that we've received have mostly been reintroductions of features that were already in Overwatch 1. Overwatch 2 removed end-of-game cards, the fire system, player ranks being displayed publicly, and level borders. Out of all of those features, they only brought back the fire system, which is kind of sad, because showing ranks and level borders was pretty important to figure out what players would need more assistance and what players had more experience.
It was just nice to see a progression.
But not only that, it just felt nice
Right.
seeing your rank and
Overwatch 2 removed more progression than it added, bro.
bottom left and displaying it to the rest of the lobby. I don't think these features will return, but it would be pretty nice. With the combination of these factors and the current state of the overall gameplay, it is very hard to be motivated to play the game.
Can't even script that shit, boys. Can't even script that shit.
To keep players motivated to spend time in-game, games introduce progression and leveling systems to display the time and effort you put into the game. The goal of these systems is to reward the player for their time in the game, giving them dopamine that hooks them to playing over and over again. Currently, in Overwatch, there are 3 progression systems open to players, the first being the Battle Pass, which I'm fine with. On the other hand, the other 2 systems are heavily flawed. Let's start with competitive. Overwatch 2 released with a reimagined version of competitive from Overwatch 1. It divided each rank into tiers rather than a numerical value, and there were a lot of issues with how SR was gained at the time. They heavily improved on these issues since then, but it's still not as good as the Overwatch 1 ranked system. Having a numerical value helped give a specific measurement of a player's rank, compared to our current system where players are only measured by broad tier breaks. And as a bonus, peak SRs help differentiate top 500 players from each other because you can see exactly how much more SR a player has compared to another. Having such a specific numerical value be your peak gave players a numerical goal to try to reach, giving them a much clearer goal rather than the broad range of something like Grandmaster 3.
Yeah, if look, I'm gonna be blunt. I'm gonna say this, and I'm sorry if I come across as a doomer. I think the new comp system is good. It's better than the original, but original Overwatch 2, but the numerical system was better, I think. I've said this, for at least high-level players where, like, you're going for a distinct peak, like, You can't, like, you're not going to sit here and say, oh, I'm GM3 68% as your peak, right? Now you're going to say your number, right? 46 peak, baby. Let's go. The changes they made have been better, but like I still don't think it's better than the original. I'm not going to lie.
In addition to this,
the modifiers are cool. The modifiers are cool, but the actual like numerical system I think was better.
Rewards went hand to hand with this numerical peak to motivate players to get better. When you reached higher ranks, you were awarded more competitive points as a reward for reaching such ranks, Grandmasters receiving the most and Bronze receiving the least. You also received seasonal unique sprays and player icons if you did your competitive placements. These could be used for many different reasons, to show off your favorite season
but if you're
of
an
the
average
game,
player, you don't
when
care.
you got your peak, or when you started playing the game. And as a special bonus, any player who finished in the top 500 of players during that season would receive a moving spray. These moving sprays showed the accomplishments of high-ranked players and gave veterans something to show off to others, making a competitive player culture and inspiring others to get to high ranks. In Overwatch 2, they removed all rewards from competitive. You can only receive competitive points from the games you played, and you don't receive any sprays or cosmetics from that season at competitive.
I didn't know
the
that.
only thing that you get is a player title, naming your rank and your role, that disappears in one season. The competitive points system was revamped, and now there are legacy competitive points and regular competitive points, which cannot be combined anytime soon. I have about 1,500 competitive points that are completely useless because I cannot combine them with my new ones, and my new ones won't be combined until they release a new competitive weapon skin. And speaking of which, the Jade skin is a horrible excuse for a competitive award. The whole point of a gold weapon skin being a competitive award is because it is a universal skin that can match with any skin in the game. The Jade weapon skin looks horrendous on almost 75% of the skins, especially with a lot of these weapon variants. Blizzard should have either came out with multiple weapon colors or should have picked colors that can be universally used, such as silver or a white pearl or black obsidian. Jade creates such a niche that a lot of players don't buy them. When you put out content that players aren't going to want to use, it makes it frustrating.
By the way, I've not bought a single Jade skin. I think they look fucking horrible. I'll say it. Sorry, boys. Sorry, look, if you like Jade, that's cool. But the fact that they went with Jade first, and like I'm not trying to sit here and be a doomer. Like it's not the end of the world. Like there's a reason why I haven't talked about it because I just don't really care too much. Though I guess I don't know. I just don't. I think there were so many choices they could have made, and they just chose a really bad one in my opinion. That's okay though. It's fine.
To want to play the next competitive season. Blizzard also announced special tag customization, which I think is cool, but is very lazy and will get old quickly if they don't add different variations of it. Blizzard should really look into making other competitive awards that will motivate all players to want to get the cosmetics. What I would love to see is a competitive version of the Overwatch League shop. Imagine a black, white, and gold version of the base default skin that is specific to Overwatch competitive. There are a lot of players that would use these skins, and they would go hand in hand with the gold guns, and you can get them from competitive too. With the Overwatch League being gone, the only way to receive this type of genre of skin is by spending a lot of money, and it would be really cool to see these come back in fashion. Anyways, the point is, there needs to be a reward for the amount of time and effort you put into the game to give players dopamine and have them continue to get better, or to get rewards to show that they have put in a lot of time into the game. Gold and Jade guns are not enough to be able to do that for the player base. And the issue with everything about this as a whole is that some people don't even like playing competitive. Some people find it too stressful, or they just want a casual experience. So how do we give those players progression? Well, Overwatch decided to add a hero leveling system. Ever since they added this feature, I've not seen a soul care about it or even look at it. It's more of an annoyance since players will immediately switch to display the time played of a player when they're looking at someone's career profile. The time played statistic more accurately shows who you play, and it covers throughout your entire career. The hero level system only shows since they added it, and for me, I have most recently been playing Tracer a lot, so I have the highest level on her. But truly, I am a Reaper main, and have double the time on him than on Tracer. And on top of this, the whole system is just very useless. Everything that you do gives you XP. Even things that are not as useful can give you XP, such as on Ana. You can get XP for nading your allies, which is rewarding players for using an ability in the wrong way. It is objectively better to anti-enemies, and players should be encouraged to do this, but giving XP for the exact opposite use of the ability is not promoting players to get better at the game. It is a cheap way of just giving XP for playing. The issue with this is that there are zero cosmetics or rewards that you get for it besides these stupid player cards that aren't even ordered properly and these hero titles. It is an objectively worse way of showing who your most played is and needs to be revamped so it can stop being glossed over. A way I would do this is by taking inspiration from Call of Duty's Mastery Camo system. You can have special challenges relating to a hero's kit for players to complete for progression exclusive cosmetics like skins, weapon skins, highlight intros, battle tag customization, etc. The challenges themselves should be motivating players to learn and master that hero by understanding the best way way to get value with the tools in their kit. Going back to Ana, there should be a challenge for getting assists by using anti-nade offensively. It'll motivate players to look to make plays with nade and understand how to set up dives or break up brawls. After completing the challenge, you can receive a cosmetic, and it will add skins that change the player culture around cosmetics. Currently, the only thing you think of when you see someone with a cool skin is that, oh wow, that guy spent a lot of money. But having hero mastery skins would bring a new culture of, oh wow,
I don't know if they have the bandwidth to do that right now, to be honest, though.
That guy did that hard challenge to get that skin. It would be incredibly simple to implement a system like this, and makes me really sad that this is all they could think of for their in-game progression system. Without an actually good progression system that isn't just temporary progress like competitive in the battle pass, it is very easy to feel as if your time is being wasted on the game. The lack of a reward for the time you put into the game has caused many to experience burnout.
You were right,
Arcane.
Overwatch's gameplay loop has been stripped down ever since the switch to 5v5. Team play and synergy are becoming less and less needed to win, and heroes that can support a selfish playstyle are all taking over the meta currently. Thanks to all the constant nerfs to movement heroes and projectile heroes, and the addition of uninteractable characters, the meta has become a stale hitscan dominated TDM lobby instead of a team-based hero shooter. People are playing heroes like Ashe, Iari, Bap, Cass, Widow, just to shoot each other. There is no transaction with abilities or outsmarting. It is just Call of Duty style shooting at each other until someone dies. It actually promotes selfish play rather than team coordination, and it has led to voice chat being completely silent. The gameplay is boring, and it's unfortunate because this is the first time the meta has significantly changed. For 90% of Overwatch 2, Kiriko, Lucio, Tracer, and Sojourn were hard meta forever, and then whatever rush tank was best at the time. These heroes were untouched by Blizzard and were just the strongest in the game. It took them gutting Sojourn, hard buffing hitscan, and changing everyone's health pools to make Tracer become kind of mid, and Kiriko and Lucio have received buffs since then. But anyways, it got very stale playing the same 4 heroes for almost 2 years straight. I would love to see a dive meta at some point. I don't care if the changes are crazy, I just want to see different heroes come into the light for a while. There are a lot of heroes in the game that are just significantly worse versions of others, and there are some that only get good when everyone around them is bad. It's sad to see so many heroes be unplayable, and it causes a lot of players to burn out because they're playing the same thing over and over again. And 5v5 doesn't help much either because the tank cannot make up for their weaknesses with the tank combination. Although the strength of the meta may be exaggerated by the player base, many players feel as if they cannot do anything because they are simply on a worse hero or comp. This creates an environment where matchups are won by...
It's not just the meta that's really doing that, in my opinion. I think it's just the overall state of what they've buffed passively. Like playing against tanks, the frontline characters that have that much passive sustainability, it's just boring. They're not playing the game. Their heroes are playing for them. So it just makes you go autopilot.
By their hero choice. Players' mentals crumble a lot easier when they have somebody on an off-meta hero because they feel as if they're at such an unwinnable disadvantage, which leads to them throwing. As Philo has said before, the #1 reason for players throwing is because they believe someone else is throwing. And it doesn't help when Overwatch is supposed to be a team-based game. When content creators put out videos about how certain characters or metas are too powerful, then players will build a mindset where people just picking a character will make the game unwinnable, which unfortunately in some situations it is, especially in this meta climate. Not only does the mentality...
Here's the thing, I might disagree with this a little bit and just pure hypothetical here. I don't think it's necessarily about the biggest times where I've just like given up on a game or other people have given up on a game. It's not that it's unwinnable, it's that it's just not fun. It's not fun it's not fun playing against a Widow when she gets hyper-peeled. It's not fun playing against an Alari whose pylons up the whole game while she does better damage from range than most of the DPS roster. It's not fun playing against a super tank. It's not necessarily about is it unwinnable. It's just like, this isn't worth my fucking effort or time because it's just boring, right? I'm curious how much of it is that or if it's like actual, because I can't really speak for everyone else. I can just speak for myself.
Affect gameplay, but also the player's overall enjoyment of the game. With such a huge wave of content creators complaining about the state of the game, and even random people making their first video ever, it affects the mob and makes everyone hate the game. Do I think that it isn't deserved? No. But I believe that players should be making their own opinion on the game without just mimicking their favorite content creators' issues. Also, sending threats and emotionally driven hate to the developers doesn't help either. I think Samito is very over the top with developer harassment and drives a lot of his community to hold the same beliefs. But although he may be right with his takes, his rage towards the developers personally is too much. I would rather...
Which developer have I raged at personally outside of a crash out moment on stream when they haven't nerfed Widow for 12 seasons? I'm sorry. I disagree. And clearly, internally, people agree too, because somebody at the balance team just got replaced. Their core designer got replaced. So I'm sorry, like, you guys can sit here and say all these things, right? And say all of these things, but when your core design team has gone 2-14 for 5 straight years, they got to get replaced. Sorry. I'm sorry. No. Hard disagree. If you put up that job performance after 6 years of the same shit happening over and over and over again anywhere else, you get let go. I'm sorry. I don't wish that. I'm not happy about it. But I'm sorry. I'm calling bullshit. Gaming community's too soft. They made all of these promises, delivered on 0 of them, and somebody's got to be accountable. Somebody does. I'm sorry. Wrong. Hard disagree. The only times I have crashed out at the developers are in a heated moment in the game that's like borderline satirical. And I'll take accountability for that. But I'm not like fucking Metro putting a thumbnail of Alec Dawson on a video being like the man who's destroyed Overwatch. I'm not the one fucking doing that. Listen, you guys can try to throw me under the bus as much as you want, but tell me I'm wrong. I just want it to change. And I'm sorry that they've kept the same personnel who've been wrong for 6 years, and I can pull up the long list. It's not even a short list. It's a long-ass list of receipts of these people royally fucking up. Royally fucking up. And it's at the point where they've destroyed the entire game, which is why you're making this 38-minute long video. And here's another hot take. I'm going to call some motherfuckers out on this. Ready? I think it is senseless to sit here and say, oh, all these people do is echo the mouthpieces. Like, think about, okay, I'm going to put this, because in the Overwatch community, it's a very sensitive community. They care more about how you say something than whether or not it's true. Which is, we could talk about the world being like that in a much broader topic nowadays, where there's just like, I don't even know how I would describe it, but that's just, a lot of the world has kind of become like that, where it's more about how you say something rather than what you say, which I just think is a fucking terrible way to go through life. But hey, that's 2025. How silly is it to sit here and say this? I'm going to sit here and talk about these problems in the game for 36 minutes, which you're right about. The devs made all these promises, didn't deliver on any of them, were wrong on most of them, have been horrible with hero design, horrible with all this stuff for many, many years. Everybody knows it. But, so they are wrong. We all admit this. They were wrong on their claims. But now, because a lot of creators are making videos, some of them having naked YouTube channels, coming out saying the same thing that we all agree is wrong, they're now mouthpiecing and doing what every creator says. And I wanted to challenge Spilo on the Group Up podcast about this as well. Dude, they're not saying it because they're mouthpiecing it. They're saying it because it's the truth. That is why this stuff has continuously come up and everybody is feeling it, because it's true. Nobody's mouthpiecing someone else's opinion. They're mouthpiecing the reality of what's happened in the game. So yes, I'll stand on this one. And people have been trying to say, oh, personally attacking developers. I stand on this. And clearly somebody internally at Blizzard agrees. Their core design people should have been fired years ago. Sorry. We gave them a chance with Overwatch 2. They've shown they don't understand it. So many of the claims completely wrong. I'm sorry. It is what it is. They either needed to hire someone to help them, like Raven Software in Warzone. Because what's the excuse? What's the excuse here? And I want someone to genuinely try to explain it to me. I get it. It's not the nice thing to say. It's not the PMA thing to say. But it's clearly what needs to happen. They needed to get let go. Warzone 2 and Overwatch 2 came out at the same time. Okay? Warzone 2 was a disaster. They ruined the game. This is no secret. The movement sucked. A lot of the objective play sucked. All mods on the map was okay. But the difference between Warzone and Overwatch is that Warzone has this studio called Raven Software. Raven was in charge of balancing Warzone and making the metas fun and making the game good. In 1 year, because Infinity Ward developed Warzone 2. But Raven came back to the Warzone 2 project, I believe, after it came out. In 1 year, they undid all of the bad changes in Warzone 2 and got the game back to a playable good state. They admitted the new things they tried were wrong, and they walked it back. And the game was better. Like I'm playing Rebirth Island on the weekends again. Every weekend, the boys and I will hop on. We'll play Rebirth Island on Sunday. Warzone is the least balanced shit ever. Bro, I'm talking gameplay features. I'm not talking individual gun balance. And actually, I wouldn't say that's true. I see a lot of different stuff getting played in Warzone right now. It's fun, but not balanced. I mean, Overwatch 2 is not balanced, and it's unfun. I'm talking like from a core design level. Like let's put like specific balance aside. Let's talk core design level, right? A lot of the big things that they tried with strongholds and different things in Warzone 2 just weren't received well. They weren't. And so guess what? That shit's out of the game, and Rebirth Island's back in 1 year. What's the excuse for Team 4? You can try to frame it however you want. However you want. At the end of the day, it's the truth. And clearly somebody agreed because they hired a new core gameplay person. So I don't see how, respectfully, you can sit here and make a 36-minute long video, be right about the things that you say from the core gameplay, say all of these things are true, then towards the end of the video, sit here and say, oh, it's targeted hate and harassment. What, for wanting the people to be held accountable for ruining the game and not fixing it? That's like saying, oh, you shouldn't say your head coach should get fired when your team goes 2-16 4 years in a row. Kind of like my fucking Kentucky Wildcats and Bengals look like. God, a fucking ass weekend. No. I'm sorry. It's time for a change. It's time for a change. Don't put me as the poster child for personal harassment towards developers because I have one crash out moment on stream. Don't put me at that shit. Don't do that. That's not fair to me. That's not what I've done. I'm not putting the videos up like Metro. That's not what I've done. I'm not going to let people get away with that shit. That's bullshit. All I want is accountability from Aaron Keller because it's been 3 years. That's all I want. All I want is accountability. So yeah, I don't see how it's anybody who comes to you guys with the argument, oh, the content creators are dooming and it's creating this mob. It can't be that every single gameplay feature that was promised flopped and did the opposite. That the gameplay loop is worse. That they didn't deliver on any of their promises and people weren't fucking stupid. Like, come on, man. Which one is it? Which one is it? And this is one, again, I'm not trying to flame him here at all, but I don't see how you can sit here, make all these claims for this amount of time, and then be like, yeah, but it's the mob mentality from the community, and it's being driven and ignited by the content creators. It couldn't be that there's no accountability for any of the numerous things they were completely wrong about. I'm sorry that I'm one of the few people who's willing to say it how it is that's left in this community because everybody else fucking left or have accepted mediocrity. All good, though. All good, though. You're free to have your opinion. I just think it's absolutely insane to sit here, make this video for 30 minutes, be right about the shit that you say, and then, like, I don't know. I like to say they're proofs in the pudding, but we'll let them keep going. I think it's a good video regardless. I don't like seeing that one.
Rather have people be like Spilo and have objective takes towards the balance patches and give the developers advice and direction on where heroes should go. This would also require the developers to actually listen to the community as well. There have been so many balance patches that the developers attempted to make something weaker by globally buffing something else or just avoiding the core issue.
Or a hot take, the people in charge of the core design that are being paid to balance the game should have an understanding of why they're there and what they need to do.
Which cannot be done anymore. There needs to be communication and a healthy relationship with the developers and the players for this game to go into the right direction. I didn't make this video with the intention of hate. I do truly love this game. I've been playing it for 8 years now and I plan to continue playing it, but it's hard to love it in its current state. I only want this game to get better, and if these issues aren't addressed, then I don't think this game has a bright future. For the community, if you feel as if you're not enjoying the game or feeling burnout, I'd suggest taking a break or trying out a different game. There's no point of ramming your head into a wall over and over again. After playing the same thing for a long time, it's natural to feel something like this, and it'll be healthier to just take a step back from Overwatch. Or if you want to keep playing and don't like the competitive mode, you can try signing up for one of those hundreds of tournaments out there. There are a lot of teams out there looking for players of all ranks, and personally for me, it helped me grow a new appreciation for the game that I would have never experienced if I only continued playing competitive. Anyways, I love you guys. I love Overwatch. and I can only hope for the future. Thank you all for watching. Please share this with anyone you know, and I will talk to y'all later.
Okay. Honestly, a pretty good video. I think he hit the nail on the head for most of it. Interesting thoughts, good discussion. I would, you know, I don't. I'm nervous to say Overwatch 2's dying right now. I think it's in limbo. Go section by section here. Okay. So format, obviously bad. Did not deliver on any of the promises. No surprise. I think he kind of nailed this section here. Hero design, he nailed that section there as well. Like, just a lot of outliers that it's okay to have them come out and be a little bit messy, but they don't get addressed well over time. And this has been a big problem with Overwatch in its entire life. And it's hard to do that, to be fair. It's very, very difficult to do that. And there's a lot of things that you can only learn by putting it into practice. I wish they would keep a better eye on new characters for 3 to 6 months or so and get a better understanding of what they have to do. And be willing to make those changes more consistently. Unfortunately, right now it doesn't really matter because the format's really fucking up their design more than anything. Balance. Inconsistent, riddled with double standards, and just somehow has been just as bad in Overwatch 2, but more frequent at least. Like, it has been more frequent, but the quality as to which it's been coming out, again, has just been subpar. And this stems from, again, we'll get to this last section again, because that really irritates me. And I'm going to talk about why that last part irritated me quite a bit. But we'll come back to balance. I'm going to shelf this conversation, okay? Content, there's new skins coming out. Pump and dump skins. That's just kind of what battle passes are now. Bro, you are not a dev. Just play the game and be happy. That's the smartest shit I've ever heard. You should win a Nobel Prize for that, dude. Good shit right there. Endorse. I'd endorse you if you said that to me in game. Progression, I'm kind of neutral on this part. That's not really my wheelhouse. I'm not really playing the game for progression. I know a lot of other people are, so I'm gonna stay away from that subject because it's just not my thing. It's just not my thing. Mythic weapons are sick, though. I do love the mythic weapons. And then this section, burnout and social community, okay? Frustrated that I get singled out for targeting dev hate. I just want people to be accountable who are being paid to be there, who made promises for many, many years and did not fulfill them. That's it. I'm not the guy posting videos with Alec Dawson's face on a thumbnail saying, this man is ruining Overwatch. That's not me. In fact, if you actually watch me at all, you will know what my take about Alec Dawson has been this entire time. I said he was too new to put a judgment on him and that he needs a chance to come out and show what he's capable of. That's what my take has been on Alec for the entire time. And the best clip you'll be able to find of me saying something otherwise is a heat of the moment in-game, borderline satirical comment when somebody gets life grip being like, oh, fire him right now. Right? That's all you've seen. You haven't seen me posting long-form videos saying that these people should all like get targeted and witch hunted. I will say, I do think people who have destroyed the game and been bad for the balance of the game should be held accountable. I do think Josh No should be let go or moved somewhere else. I do. I don't think that anything that they've been saying, given their track record for 6 years of some of these people being on Team 4, have been good for the game. And they've been given numerous chances. I think Aaron needs to be held accountable and help lead change. Especially when, if you look at most of what they've done in this game, it's been false promises, false claims about what's going to happen in the game, and all of the changes and things that they've done have aged like milk. And they haven't made a better game. You said it yourself. I'm sorry. They're working big boy jobs. I'm willing to give people numerous chances, as I've given them chances for literal years, 5 or 6 years of trying to get them to do the right thing and being patient and being polite and doing all this stuff. Many people, I've watched it, and it's gotten nowhere. It's gotten nowhere. So look, I think it's very sweet that you'll sit there and say that, oh, we have to help guide them. Buddy, we've been doing that shit for 6 years. At some point, you got to get a new team. Raven did it in 1 year. I want you to tell me something big that Team 4 executed on since 2018 for this IP. With billions, or sorry, I'm not sure if it's billions, with millions of dollars in budget. Now, granted, ATVI has been in the shitter, so I'll give some pass for that, for sure. And there was a big acquisition, which slows things down a ton. I understand. So I am willing to give a lot of passes there. But you know what, man? I'm not asking for a Netflix show, which is big oversight, a lot of money. I'm not asking for, a big sequel PvE. I'm just asking for my heroes to maintain their identity. The bare minimum of what a requirement for a professional game studio is all we've asked for. So I'm sorry. I'm done caring about their feelings. They didn't deliver. They're not going to deliver. Now, Alec and this new person they hired might, and I hope they do. But I'm sorry. Don't put me as the face of the poster, the guy trying to go get all the devs fired and making it personal. That's not me. Aside from a couple rage moments, I'm not posting these videos about this shit. So take my name out of your mouth like that. That's bullshit. Though I do think there needs to be changes. And then to also say, this is not towards him specifically, just in general, where people are like, well, everyone's just regurgitating the same points. Like, and Spilo does this too. I'll call him out on it. I love Spilo. I'll call him out on it as well. You know, everyone's just, it's the same recycled, like, hate Doom content. It's the same thing. Yeah, it's almost like these people are fucking right, and that's why they're saying it. Like, what are we talking about, guys? How is it? And this is where it's we must pander to Blizzard at all costs. This is, and I'll call it how it is. I'll call out my creator friends on this. This is pandering to Blizzard to make yourself look better. That's what this is. I will say it because that's the fucking truth here, okay? You're pandering. Because how can you come out and say all of these issues are there, and then when other people make naked YouTube channels and come out and say all of these things that are objectively correct, that it's just negative doom hate cycle? Come on, guys. Come on, man.